All right, friends. So we are doing the Projector Success Series, and today we are here with Miss Dorothy Johnson. Dorothy is Breakup Coach Dorothy. She is a 6'2" self-projected projector, and it's really fun to watch her just like living her design, operating her business by her design, living more and more into her projectorness, as we would say, following her authority, which is what she first came to me for, and then watching her just like blossom with her design since then has been just like such a joy. So Dorothy, do you have anything else you'd like to say, introduce yourself with?
No, I'm just so excited to be here and talk about it because it's influenced my life so much in so many ways that I'm very excited to talk about all the things projector.
Yes. Okay, I love it. So Dorothy's, we'll get into it with the system you're mastering. So as a projector, we are here to master systems. Now, that's not necessarily doing the doing, it's mastering the overarching system that helps people get to what they're trying to get to. So I would love to know from you, what system are you mastering as a projector?
Um, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
I was like, wait, that's a leading question.
I'm kidding. I am absolutely mastering heartbreaks. So helping people heal heartbreak in a completely new way. And so I got to have my lived experience of heartbreak. I did it completely wrong. I spent like $47,000 trying to figure it out. I spent 547 days figuring it out so that I could figure out the right way, the way that is best and most efficient in terms of healing heartbreak. So I'm very, very excited about it. And I now have been doing this work for 4 years and I feel like fully in alignment with it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's so clear, like that's what I'm supposed to do with my life. For
Yeah.
me, it is so clear. And I'm so grateful that I learned that so early on in life. Like I think it was 28 when I realized this is what I was put here on earth to do. Like I had to experience the earth shattering devastation of that really terrible heartbreak, but it all led to this. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Ooh, so powerful. And I'm hearing so much of your design just as you're sharing that, right? So, being a self projected projector, one of the main elements of your design is that defined G center, and that defined G center knows who you are and it knows where you're going. It's like this pull, right? And so, for you to be like, I'm so clear, I know what I'm here to do, like, that's so cool. And because you're a 6'2" and you're like around 28 is when I got this clarity, which is like exactly when you move from right around your Saturn return from the first 30 years or the first cycle of your life. In that sixth line, there's three distinct phases. So you're like on the roof being like, no, this is it. Like, I know what this is. I know what this system is. It's so cool to hear you talk
Right? So fun.
um, and then like from there, like from a little bit about your design, like we originally started talking about your authority. Like, what does your authority feel like? We were chatting in the DMs. You're like, I don't know what this means. What the heck does self-projected or G center authority or whatever that looks like? And so I'm really curious in your own words, what your authority feels like in your body and how you follow like your decision-making strategy, your authority, your self-projectedness.
I love this because this was such a monumental thing for me. Like, this is why I came to you was I just felt so stagnant in my business because I wasn't making I wasn't making any decisions. I was spinning in indecision, waffling back and forth. And I remember searching and I did like a lot of inner voice work, which I know inner voice and human design kind of couple really well together. But I knew there had to be something with my authority. And to be quite honest, I knew that Elsie was splenic. And so I knew a little bit about splenic. And then I kept hearing about the gut and it's a, And I was like, I'm jealous. I want that one. Why don't I have that one? Mine's like not as easy. I know. And so I remember talking to you and I was almost kind of mad that I was like, are you sure this is my, like, the authority that I'm supposed to have? Like, I hated the fact that I felt like I was supposed to talk it out with I hated that I needed to involve another person to make a decision. I was like, why can't I have one of the authorities where I don't need to involve someone else into listening? And you're like, well, you don't have to. And here's all these options and things like that. So coming back to your original question around how can you describe it in your body in your own words? I think that the biggest thing that I realized being self-projected is that my voice can get like light and flowing through my vocal cords a lot easier. And then there's other times where it gets stuck. It feels tense in my throat and it's hard for me to get it out. And then it feels heavy. It sounds heavy and like drudgy and like we're swimming through muck or something. Versus it can feel very light and free flowing and airy and beautiful. And it feels relaxed in my throat. Does that make sense?
Yes, 1000%.
Self-projected projector for you too.
Let me tell you all the things, because I'm a fellow self-projected projector. And so for me, it's almost like this feeling of like the chest opening and like moving forward when it's like the correct answer, right? It's where it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And the tonality in our voice shifts. And I've definitely noticed this in you. I'm sure you've noticed it in me, of like when we're talking things out, because it's stream of consciousness, right? Like you can allow yourself to be like this or this or this, but when you really let yourself go, it's just like stream of consciousness. Well, I could do this, and then I could also do this. And what about this? Right. And so you're just like letting yourself get it out of your body.
Right. And it was so cool after I finally realized what it was and how to work it, and I was able to get over that hump. It was so validating too, which I'm sure plenty of people say about all the human design aspects. But for me, I remember I have this best friend who I love so much. And she, like, I would have to be at the dinner table and be like, talk out a decision, or I would be making a decision at home about what I want to wear, and I would want to talk it out. And I always had this desire to talk it out. And I thought in the beginning I was talking it out because I wanted help with someone to make my decision. Come to realize it was just like my way of processing a decision. And so that was really helpful, because I know that people surrounding me would get frustrated with me having to speak out my decisions, thinking like I'm indecisive and labeling me as indecisive. And then I took that label and put it on myself, being like, because I have to talk things out, I must just be indecisive and I can't make any decisions. And then I further like perpetuated that self-limiting belief. And then it bled into my business. Obviously, that's why I found you. And so it was just like, oh, I can see how this whole situation that I was struggling with actually happened.
Yeah.
So that was like really good and like useful for me to see as well. It's like, oh, wow, no, since I was a baby, I've been talking out decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really funny.
So fun. I'm wondering since like learning that about yourself and knowing that that's how you make decisions, what you've been able to let go of, whether in your personal life or in your business, that you used to operate like that some way before. And now that you know how you actually operate as a projector.
Many. Yeah. So many. I have so many things to say about that. I mean, in my personal life, it's been a blessing because number one, I have a really great fiance who is so on board. I mean, he did the session with you where we did like a couple session. And so now that he knows that that's my authority, he is always like, okay, talk it out. Tell me all the things. And then he'll listen for it. And then we go through it together and we talk about it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And then in my friendships, sometimes I'll just preface like, hey, I don't need your opinion here, or I'm just gonna be talking this out because that's just the way I make decisions. And so I don't need your help. And if you don't want to hear me, walk away. But I'm going to talk this decision out and figure it out. So I might be talking about the same option multiple times. And then it's like small things like at dinner, I'll be looking at the menu and I'll just be like, ooh, do I want and I'll do it in a very casual way that I don't make it into a thing or tell them what I'm doing. I'm just like, ooh, look at this. And I'm just expressive with my words instead of so much with my body all the time. And then in business, it's been very eye-opening and helpful because it makes it okay for me to schedule time with my coaches and my colleagues to talk through things. Whereas before I was like, is this a waste of time? Because I just need to make the decision and get the work done versus like, no, there is a thing for me about being able to talk it out and having sounding boards and having people who can hear me and maybe sometimes give me advice, maybe sometimes just talk it through with me. And that's an important aspect and component of my business. And so making time to have colleagues. And so I have like a couple of friends who I meet with like bi-weekly and monthly, that where we just talk about business stuff. So friends, colleagues, whatever you want to call them. And that's kind of my way of talking through a lot of decisions. And then also like, of course, Projector Playground, being able to talk through decisions that way as well. So, and it also just shows me the value of those relationships. Like, am I creating and cultivating relationships with people who value, see, and recognize me, and then can also make space for my authority? Because not every coach and not every colleague or friend is going to make space for my authority. And I think that's something that I'm just now coming to realize is I could get on the phone with someone, and if they talk the whole time, it's not a very fulfilling, like, relationship for me because my authority doesn't get to present itself. But yeah.
Oh, that's so juicy.
Yeah.
So juicy, especially right because like in the coaching space and the consulting space and all of that, it's like, does the person just like have kind of an agenda of like what they think you should do, and therefore like you're going to follow their process, versus creating that collaborative coaching actual environment where it's like, okay, but what's correct for you? Like here's this, but what is it for you? And being able to take
Mhm.
that energy of discernment into those conversations is just like chef's
Yeah.
kiss. So freaking powerful.
So good.
So good. Thank you. Okay. So I want to move on to the next part, which is like sometimes it's really hard as a human to just like grasp the energy of like what the hell is waiting for the invitation. And so I would love if you could share some examples of invitations that you've received, or like your understanding of invitations, wherever your beautiful self projected self wants to go with that.
Yeah. I don't know if I have been one to really struggle with this. Like, I know that or maybe I have this perception that other people struggle with it more so than I do. But one thing that I am thinking about that came to mind as you said that was I really wanted to be on this specific person's podcast, like really badly. And I wanted to be seen and acknowledged in this person's community, especially because I was like a part of that community. Like I paid to be a part of that community, and I was the first breakup coach of that community's kind, and like all of this stuff. And I was like, I know it's a missing component from what they're talking about on this podcast, and I want to be a part of it. And I pitched myself to them like 6 times, and every single time it came back with like a 1 sentence liner of like, no, thank you. We're not looking for podcast guests, but we just had 3 last week. So like all the things.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one where I got pretty frustrated, annoyed, and bitter about, as I was, and it wasn't until I just kind of like gave up, surrendered,
Yeah.
the proper term for that. But I kept just making myself visible more and more and more to all the community members. And I was like, if the community members see me as valuable, and I put myself out there, and I kept hearing from you and Elsie too, that it was like, oh, but you're 6'2", like they see you and you just don't realize that they're already seeing you. And I always thought that was super helpful too. And then, but yeah, I eventually got the invitation to be on the podcast, and it was the perfect timing, right? Because I hadn't yet fully like finished my process. And it was like the fact that it had been so many years into my career before I got invited onto the podcast, I think it taught me 2 things. The first thing was I created this huge community of my own. And so therefore I don't feel attached to that podcast episode sending me a lot of people, which I think a lot of other individuals might feel that way. Like, oh, I'm only successful because this community acknowledged and recognized me. But I found multiple ways to create my own community and create my own podcast and be able to do my own things that got myself visible. So I thought that that was really important. And then the second piece was just that I just got so much more clear about my people, my messaging, my problem, the solution that I offer. And I think that having that clarity before recording that podcast was so beneficial, because so many people will hear that specific episode.
Oh, yes, so good. That
Yeah.
timing of like what the mind thinks it wants in a specific timing with an expectation
Mhm.
versus like the surrender, lean back. I'm showing up excitedly about the work that I do in the world. And when I am seen and recognized, like by people I'm meant to be seen and recognized, like then it gets to come to fruition with ease, without push, without force.
Yeah. I think maybe here that even goes back to like why I'm like, oh, maybe I don't think I have a problem with waiting for the invitation. But I think I'm just like roughly blind to it because even as you say that, I'm like, that also applies to where I'm at in my business now of feeling like I'm just now realizing how attached I was to scaling
Mm,
and how quickly that needed to happen and when that needed to happen and how it needed to happen. And I can even take what you just said and apply it to that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Absolutely. Versus being like, do I really need to scale? And what's the desire behind scaling? Is that actually what I want? Or do I really want to be like in this joyful, playful place where my energy is flowing and I get to do whatever the hell I want to like
Mm-hmm.
be visible? And then I'm not for everyone, but who does recognize me and invite me? Like,
Yes.
it's just so beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
especially because you have this such fun teacher energy, which I just like need to point out. Like,
I love it so much. I'm so glad. It's literally one of my favorite things.
yeah.
So when you said that about my design, I was like, yes, that is so great.
Because it's like your style of coaching. It's like very teacher based, which is
It
like,
is. And I used to think that that was a problem, right? Because I was conditioned and trained that coaching is asking questions. And I'm like, yeah, I ask really impactful and powerful questions. But at the same time, I'm like, I think I like teaching a lot in my sessions. And I think that that's a great thing. Whereas before I was like, that's definitely a problem. I need to work on my coaching skill.
I got to fix it, even though nothing is broken.
Hmm.
I am obviously wrong, and the authority is obviously correct.
Right.
The outside authority, gosh, ridiculous. What we do to ourselves, we're just like so perfect. And we're like, let me give away all of this power to everyone.
Oh, so funny.
So funny what we do to ourselves. I love that. Okay, I would love to know. I feel like I know the answer to this, but I want you to share. What are you most proud of right now?
What am I most proud of? Now I'm like totally caught off guard because you think you know the answer. I'm like, I want to know what your answer
Well,
is.
okay, whatever your answer is perfect. But I'm just like watched you develop something over the past year, and
Oh,
I'm like, is that
yes.
it?
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple things I'm most proud of in my
Yeah.
business. In my business, yeah, it's the two things. I just recently created a new, like, what would you call opt-in, more than move on, build a life your ex regrets leaving. And
Okay.
I'm just like so pumped about this because of two things. When I was going through my breakup, all I ever really wanted was I wanted my ex back,
Mhm.
or, and I wanted to have a life that looked fabulous so that my ex would come back.
So essentially the same thing, just
Yeah,
the two
right.
pack.
Right. And so, and realizing that was like really interesting because I haven't vocalized it. I
Mm,
mean, I would say it around about, or I would say it and then justify why I was saying that because people who haven't been through a very traumatic breakup, they're like, that's not what you want your people to want. You want them to be okay on their own without their ex. And I'm like, yeah. But what's really enticing to someone who's just gone through a breakup is building a life that their ex regrets leaving. And I think that they deserve that. They
yeah.
deserve a life that their ex regrets leaving. I would love for their ex to come back and say, I fucked up. And for it to be their decision of
Ooh,
whether or not they want to try it again.
yes.
That
Oh,
is an ideal outcome for one of my clients. And I'm now like realizing like I can just be that open and that upfront about what I want my clients to have. And obviously I can't force their ex to come back and regret leaving their life. But if they get to that place, awesome, cool. That's amazing because they're not going to care if their ex regrets leaving or not. But that's the shit where I'm like, it's diluting the message when I try to like justify why I'm saying that to the people who just don't get it.
right.
And so I get to stop that. And so I'm so excited about this new offer, this free 2-day immersive event, because number one, it's this 2-day immersive event.
Mhm.
Hello, like festival
Oh,
vibes. Um, And then two, I get to teach people that it's okay to want their ex to regret leaving. And it's okay to work towards that, because I'd rather you be working towards that than mulling over why you don't have him.
Yeah.
And that to me is like gorgeous and amazing and beautiful. And so like being all into that, and it just feels the most aligned in my business I felt in a long time.
Mm.
And then secondly, venturing into non-breakup related programs, because my big vision was and is the Braveheart Academy, which is an entire library all about getting over your ex and building a life that your ex regrets leaving. And building a life that your ex regrets leaving looks different for everyone. So it's like you've got your main course, which is get over your ex, right? And then after they graduate that, then they can enroll in the next chapter mentorship, which is like a monthly membership. And you pay this one rate every month to then have access to the entire Braveheart library, which you're building a life that your ex regrets leaving looks different for everyone. So maybe that's like the lifestyle, the home, the family you wanted, the love that you wanted. And we're going to have courses on all of that. And I have been conditioned to believe to like have one simple offer and stick with that and hone that to scale it and to get it as big as possible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I cannot anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I fuck scaling, like scaling, cool. I'm glad to see other people do it. I just am so ready to build out those courses. And I don't know, I'm just so lit up by doing that. And so I created the first one, and the first one's being delivered live. And then that will be packaged up as the first course and placed on the shelving. And then we'll run another one and package it up and put it on the shelf. And like, I'm just so excited because now I get to run courses that I'm genuinely interested in while also still helping everyone in the Get Over Your Ex program. And I just think, oh, it's like the perfect thing. I feel so good about it.
Oh my gosh, you guys, did you hear that in her voice? That is correct for you, right?
Yeah.
So fun to play with. Oh, so good, so good. I'm wondering, I think you touched on it a little bit, but what do you see differently than most people in your industry?
I feel like everything. Like there's so much. There's a lot of not great advice on the internet about getting over your ex. Some of it being it just takes time to heal. Time has nothing to do with it. That's why you could be a year and a half out from your breakup and still reeling over him day in and day out. Distracting yourself and staying busy, that's just you avoiding the problems. Going no contact, that's you manipulating the situation to try to like not have it trigger you. Kind of like I use the example of ice cream a lot, but that's like if you're trying to no longer have like eat ice cream, that's the difference between having the ice cream in your freezer and just not having the desire to eat it or the attachment to it versus being like, I can't get the ice cream because it can't be in my house. Otherwise I eat it. It's like that level of self-control. So I don't really believe in addressing the symptoms of breakup. I really address the root cause, which is threefold. Number one, the desire for your ex. If you didn't have a desire to be with that person, you wouldn't be calling him on a Tuesday night after having a cocktail at happy hour. Attachment. So not feeling attached to your ex or like feeling like your future is attached to that person. Like if he's not in my life, I'm not going to have the future I wanted, because that was me. I felt like he was the key to the future that I desired. And when you learn how to reduce attachment, it's so beautiful, because then when you go into your future relationships, you can fall madly in love and not be attached to that person or that situation working out. And it's a completely different space to be in. And then the last thing is the breakup stories, or what I call the breakup lies. So the things that you're making your breakup mean about you. So, you know, one of the things that I made my breakup mean was he had moved on quickly. And so I made it mean he never loved me, which means I'm not lovable. Some other stories I hear is I'm not good enough, or I wasn't worth it, or I wasn't worth fighting for. What you're making it mean about you is the additional suffering on top of pain that already has to happen and has to process. But that suffering part is really optional. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, yes. And it's so fun to like hear your design come through again. Like Six lines love to get to the root of a problem and to like, don't need me anymore. Like, I want you to get to the point where you don't need me. You're not signing up every 2 weeks for something from me. It's like, let me help you get to the core of the issue, solve it. And then if you want to like play in this life together further, I have all these options for you, but we've solved that problem. Like,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah. Like get over your ex for good. Like let's make it as good as forgotten because it's one and done. Like getting over your ex in a very permanent way is so important to me.
freaking love it.
Mhm.
There's a difference in my viewpoint with human design of knowing it, like understanding concepts of it, and like fully embodying it and experimenting with it in your life and in your business. So I'm really curious from someone who's been experimenting for like almost a year at this point.
It's
Um,
wild.
that's so fun. If
Okay.
you had a piece of advice for someone who just found out they were a projector like yesterday, they pulled their chart and they're like, what the heck does this projector thing mean? Like, what would you recommend for them to start to experiment with or try on?
I feel like the best thing that they could try on is the first thing you gave. Well, I guess there's two. Can I have two?
Yes, you can have like 17 if you want. You're so
Okay.
projected, just let it go.
Yeah. So the first one would be playing.
Hmm.
Right? So you told us to like play. Like one of our very first assignments when I was hanging out with you in Projector Playground was to play, like literally giving yourself more playtime. And it's really helped me recognize what kind of life I actually want. Like I literally just recently with one of my like thought work based coaches, she asked me, who am I?
Hmm.
And it was really interesting because a lot of what came up was like, ooh, I want to, like, I have luxurious time to paint and to roll around in the grass with Tinkerbell and Baby Marilyn and to read and not be in front of a screen. And so when I came to you, I was in front of a screen like the majority of my time. And so you telling us to go play and like get out in nature, it just like opened up this whole portal of this is who I've always meant to be. And I just didn't realize it. Like, how could, I don't know, the play component for me was huge in being a projector. It made me realize, like, oh, this is how I recharge.
Yeah.
Play is how I recharge. I thought I needed to like nap or I needed to do all these things. And like naps and laying horizontal, don't get me wrong, are amazing. But I think I really recharge when I allow myself to play.
Yeah. Oh,
So that was really important.
oh, I love that so much. And like watching you take on like new versions of play has been
Mhm.
so fun to see. Like making it time and creating space for play. Like, does it look like walking your dog? Does it look like dancing in a studio? Does it look like painting? Does it look like remodeling a home? Like, what does your play get to be?
Yeah, and that's a good one too, because I think that's a struggle that I had at one point when I got Tinkerbell. I was like, but this doesn't feel like play, it feels like work. Like I have to take her for a walk.
Yeah.
And it was like, what if it could be play though? Yeah, I love that. The other thing too that I think is just experimenting with your authority. Literally, it's game changer. If you just let your authority slash inner voice make all of the decisions for just like 30 days and do your thought work around the decisions being made,
Mhm.
it will blow your mind. It will change everything. It's so fun.
So agree. It's like that beautiful combination of the inner voice and the authority and the thought work and where they get to meet. Because what I watch a lot of people do is like do the thought work to convince themselves to make a decision that actually isn't aligned for them, and then they have to
Mhm.
do more thought work on top of that around like not getting the results that they want, and like right, so then it's like just becomes this like thought work shitstorm
Yeah.
versus like
Mhm.
allowing yourself to like fully trust that inner knowing, your inner authority, and being like, I know what is best. And my mind's going to have drama about this decision because there are so many other things I could choose from. So,
Yep.
where can I leverage the thought work on top of it to be like, I know and I trust myself to make the right decisions, and I can reframe my thoughts around why I think I should have made a different decision.
100%. And I think another gap that I had to overcome was recognizing that my authority and my inner voice are me.
Yeah.
Because I think that I would like I'd be like, oh, my authority is an authority. And it's like this thing outside of me that I have to listen to versus being like, my authority is me. It's
Yeah.
literally like the most aligned version of me. It's my soul speaking, which is me. We're
Yeah.
here together.
Yeah.
I kept feeling like almost like a third party. It was like, oh, there's the mind, and then here's the authority, and I'm this third party stuck in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Angel devil on shoulders kind of situation.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, no, 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 boo. Mm-mm. You are your authority. And then you've got the mind with all the chatter, and that's fine.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I loved hearing your perspective and your story and your view on what this has looked like. And if you're available for it, let's dive into projector playground things.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. Okay. So I want to know kind of a little bit about like what your life was like before enrolling in Projector Playground, specifically around your business.
Yeah. So it was a lot of work, like a lot of work. I don't know if you recall, but I was working like 60 to 80 hours. And I was proud of myself at the time because I had
Yeah.
like reduced it. And I was launching 4 times a year, sometimes 5 times a year. And the launches took everything out of me. It was like a sprint to burnout and then like rest and do nothing and then feel bad about myself, beat myself up, and then sprint to burnout, feel bad about myself, all the things. So it was just like this repeat cycle. And I hated launching. It always felt, like the overwhelming emotion that I would have during launch was pressure. It was just like this thick, heavy pressure of I've got to do this or else my life is on the line because I won't be able to survive without the money that comes in from the launch. And then I'm going to be homeless and I'm not going to have any food and I'm not going to be able to support anyone. Why do I even think I can have a child?
I'm only giggling because I so recognize that dialogue and have had that exact same dialogue
Yeah.
in a previous version of my business. So it's
Yeah.
just like, yep, check, check, check. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my experience of business. And I think I was also sad. I was really sad because I love what I do. I have the world's best job. I love what I do. And I love my brave hearts like no one's business. So when I found myself getting bitter and annoyed around my brave hearts not signing up or launches not going the way that I wanted and people asking for things for free and not really like seeing and recognizing me, I was like, something is deeply wrong. And then also the decisions, right? So like, how can I make any kind of decision about my business long-term from that dark, deep place of bitter and annoyance of my people?
Like, the seed that is planted is a bitter, bitter fruit that's going to be a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's where I was pre-projector playground.
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious what you believed about like success back then. Like, what was success to you before?
Oh yeah. Success to me was scaling to multiple millions of dollars, having a very simplified approach, where it was like, oh, I have the Get Over Your Ex program, and the Get Over Your Ex program scales to millions of dollars. You make it evergreen, like this whole thing. I think, what else? Being like the main breadwinner, hustling, being like a badass CEO in like a black suit
Hey, got it.
with a short
Got the
haircut.
image. So
Like,
specific.
that's what I saw as success.
And what about now? What do you believe about success? What is success to you now?
Yeah, it's just so much more soft. Like, I don't know, it was the difference between masculine and feminine, right? Like I saw success as being like this very masculine, hard, heavy, structured thing. And now I'm like, oh my God, I could be a millionaire and it not even be through my business, number one. Number two, I can still be like my voluptuous, playful, unprofessional self and have success. It's not like, I also don't feel like the urgency or the speed to get there anymore. And that is literally like a very recent shift that's like new to me.
Yeah.
But it's this light feeling of like, I don't even see my business in success. Like I see my personal life of me, baby Marilyn, Tinkerbell, rolling around in the grass outside with our faces in the sun, painting, reading, playing, grounded, calm, gardening. That's what I see as success now. And like, yes, I want a business and I want to continue to help people and I want to help brave hearts who are really struggling from heartbreak. And I have that process and honing that and all of that. And I think that that's amazing and beautiful, but I want that to not happen at the expense of the success in my personal life.
Oh, yeah. It's
You
just a
know?
piece. It's just a part of your success. Mm.
Yeah. And I think it's just like this overall sense of who I am today, right now, is enough. Who I am today, right here, right now, is the $1 million version of me. And I kept thinking like I needed to become different or better to be that I needed to keep like striving to be the $1 million self. And I remember being like, oh, I keep napping or I keep like, I didn't get this thing done on my calendar again today. And so I'm not being my $1 million self. And like, I don't look this way, or I'm not doing these things, or I'm not organized enough, or I don't have my shit together enough to be my $1 million self. So I need to like work on all those things so that I can be $1 million Dorothy.
Oh, I love it. That's like such undefined sacral conditioning. Like, when is enough enough? And we always move the goalposts on ourselves if we're not careful. Like, it's such
Yeah.
a tricky thought. And none of it's true.
Yep.
Oh, so good. I'd love if you could paint a little picture for what it was like for you in the Projector Playground program. What was
Yeah.
the experience like for you? And I know we're still in it at the moment. So, but it's been lots of rounds and lots of love. So curious so far.
It's literally like, it's just a beautiful container. It's a container. I don't even, I feel like this sounds really weird, but it's like this smushy, gooey, like it reminds me of Play-Doh. You're in a
Ooh.
Play-Doh container and you just get to like hold and touch and play with Play-Doh while you're also like getting all of your huge business shit done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels so soft and so wonderful and it's so easeful and you're just like moving through the Play-Doh, hanging out, and I think that's the cool thing is it's like these are my best friends. Like you, Elsie, Deanna, like my best friends are the people in this container. And we get to do the things that I love doing, which is talking about play, talking about our business, make money, help people. And we all get to do it using our authority, following that inner voice, all those feelings. And it's just like, I just feel the most authentic in this program. It's just so easy. And literally it's, I'm like, and then you sprinkle it with massages. And that's just like what gets me. You know me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just feel like the container, if I would have to like paint a vision of it, even though it's weird, is just like Play-Doh, and we get to like move throughout it and we get to play together and build things for our business. And it's just like I just will never forget the Costa Rica retreat where it's like we went there and we just like had massages and did nothing and got so much shit done in my business.
Yeah.
That was like, that's my ideal dream experience. I hate being forced to go to events where they're like, now we're going to do this activity and now we're going to do this activity. And like, let's get uncomfortable and weird. And I'm like, can I just like lay down and can we just go to the beach and go for a walk? Can I just like go and see this and experience this? And it's like the perfect activities for my most authentic self while also having beautiful, really important and very impactful discussions about my business and making decisions. Like from that same retreat, the Costa Rica retreat, it's like I left with exactly what needed to happen in my business. And it didn't feel like we worked at all. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's the goal. Yeah.
And I had all these notes of things I was going to do. And like when I got home, I was like, these are the steps in which I'm taking. And it transformed everything.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
So like juicy, so juicy. Like I remember really vividly having a hot tub hot seat where we like sat in the hot tub and like just jammed out on some stuff we were like going through. I was like this is the patent pending sort of thing, like hot tub hot seat.
I love it. I love it. 100%. Well, and I think too, what's interesting with that, I mean, that brought me back to, because that one was in California, right? Wait, no. That was
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. But then we had a hot tub in California too. And I think the California one, what's interesting about that is I had so much stuff I needed to handle in my personal life that was very much impacting my business.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really cool because yes, Projector Playground is centered around business, but you guys, if you have a personal life, like, you know, that shit interferes with work, especially when you're working from home.
Yeah.
So me getting all that cleared up in California was so vital to me being able to run my business once I got back home. And I didn't even realize that. I think I had one really huge epiphany about the business, which was like, oh, I already have $1 million funnel and it's working. And I just didn't realize it. Um, Pretty huge. But then the rest of the time was spent just sorting out, how do I handle working with my Tinkerbell?
I love it. Because I mean, that's the thing about human design and using it. It's like you can't unknow it, first of all, like once you know, you can't unknow. And two, it impacts every single area of your life. It's not like you're like, oh, I'm only going to make decisions for my business using my authority. It's like, why wouldn't you make decisions in all areas of your life? You know?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
so good, so fun. I'm wondering, what did you create, change, or accomplish or shift for yourself throughout the program?
It's such a loaded
I
question.
know.
So much. Like, where do I even start? I mean, the first one is like, I created the $1 million funnel. I think that's
Yep,
pretty crazy.
that
And
works.
so wild. Created a very important and working $1 million funnel out of Projector Playground. And
So proud of you. Like, oh my God,
right.
it was so good. And it was all following your authority. And it was like working so much, like you were working so much less. Oh, oh.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, I don't even know how to, like, there's so many things that I could call out, but let me just say, like, 2021, I launched 5 times.
Mm.
2022, we're in 2022, it's August. I have launched once and I've made the same amount of money. So, like,
Queen, I'm bowing to her if you're listening to the audio. It's just, yes.
so it's like that. Those are the internal changes on the back end of the business that were made to create that kind of result. So it's very fascinating, very different from what I'm used to. And I'm still like learning this process. I'm still kind of in it, but that to me is kind of monumental. Like, I've launched once in comparison to, at this point last year, I think I had launched 3 times and 2 of them were absolutely miserable. But the last one leading, I think it was in June of last year, I had started Projector Playground, and that's when you gave me the thought, it's already done. And I started kind of like working around using my authority to make decisions from the it's already done place.
Mm.
Right. And then that was the first time that I filled the launch at 26 people. Yeah.
So good.
And it was a fun launch. We didn't even call it a launch. We changed the word and we said, this is a festival.
Oh my gosh, yes. Highly recommend for anybody who has launch trauma. And if you're a projector, you likely have launch trauma.
Yeah.
Call it something different. Make it your own. Make it what you need it to be.
Mm-hmm. It was a festival. We had a festival for a week and a half and it was beautiful.
Amazing. I freaking love it. Oh, okay. I want to talk a little bit about how your mind has shifted around human design. We actually talked a little bit about this morning in the Voxer,
Mm-hmm.
because when we first talked, you're like, I just want to learn how to use my authority. Like, there's so many decisions to be made. I feel like I'm waffling. Like, how do I use this authority? And then it's kind of like shifted and transformed. So I'd be curious if you had anything to say to somebody who's on like the fence about Projector Playground around like, is this the program for me? What will I learn? Kind of like that element. What would you
Mm-hmm.
say and share?
I think my biggest thing to say and share about that is just saying that you don't have to learn everything about human design. You don't need to join Projector Playground and be like, Now I have to learn everything about generators and mangens and like these weird things they call gates. And like, I still don't even know all the names of these weird like things that are defined and undefined.
Yeah.
Like UNLC will say something, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, and nor do I care. Like, just
Yeah.
tell me what applies to me.
Yeah. Yep. Here's what's applicable. Hmm.
Yeah, I do not. I know some about other people's authorities, and the only reason I do is because I'm interested in those like loved ones in my personal life and like figuring out how to best work with them. But I do not spend too much time trying to figure out everything there is to know about human design. And maybe I'll have like a desire or a need or a want to do that, right? But it has not happened yet in the year ish that we've been working together. So I think if anyone's on the fence because they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about human design, I don't really even want to learn everything there is to know about human design. I just want to use my design to implement and change and transform my own life and my business. That's fine because I didn't know a single fucking thing. Not even, or I don't know if we're allowed to swear. I didn't know anything about human design.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was a projector and I barely knew what that meant. And then for the self project, I was like, for real, Lauren, I have no idea what that means. And I'm pissed that I have to talk things out. This is absolutely absurd. So don't feel like you need to learn it all or that you're going to be forced to learn it all. Just come in and take what applies to you. And I think that's the beauty of Projector Playground is you don't like, if you try to go out and do this on your own, like DIY it, you're going to have to like consume everything about everyone versus having someone just like interpret it with your whole design knowledge, because it's like there's so many things that also work together. So it's like, yes, you could learn what there is to know about a projector, but what about your authority and how your profile also interacts with your authority, or your profile interacts with your type, and like those sorts of things. Like you can just have Lauren tell you how it applies to you and that specific situation you're struggling with versus trying to like piece it together and then questioning whether or not you're right. And to me, that's worth money and time.
Yeah. Oh, love it. And what would you say about having it be, because the Projector Playground is like a 3 month, like quote unquote mastermind sort of container where you're with other projectors? I'd love to hear about your experience of being in a group of projectors.
Yeah, I mean, you're just going to feel so seen and so recognized, and it's a very soft landing space for you. I don't know. I just feel like I've always been someone who's like, please see me. Like going back to this, the first thing that I was talking about, where it's like that waiting for the invitation thing and that community. I just wanted that community to see me so bad. And being in a community that just like that's what they do naturally is see you. It's like the key to everything. And someone recently said that being in a like-minded community is like the cheat code to life. And I can't remember who it was, but I really resonate with that, because when you start putting yourself in containers who are all working towards the same thing, it just amplifies and excels the results that you get in life. It just gets you to where you're going a lot faster because you have other people's minds in on it and you have other people's authorities in on it. And you just like can see and watch and explore other people going through it. I mean, again, in California, one of the biggest epiphanies that came to me was through watching Dana go through and experience something. And then I think it was you being like, Dorothy, this is you with that situation that we were talking about before. And I'm like, what? What? As I'm seeing Dana go, I was like, Dana, this is ridiculous. Stop it. And then you were like, no, Dor, that's you with this situation. I'm like, oh my God. And then you can start putting like these puzzle pieces together that you couldn't see if you didn't see it in someone else first.
Yeah.
The way that I kind of describe it to my people when we're talking about coaching specifically is that when you watch someone else get coached, but this also applies to like Projector Playground and the conversations that we have and the type of coaching we're talking about here, it's almost like going to the gym and watching someone work out, but you getting the benefits of it just because you watched them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. And it really goes to our aura too, right? Our auras are outward facing and they're for the other. So often like we can't point it back at ourselves. Like projectors are a little bit blind. to our
Yeah.
own shit. So when
Mhm.
we can see it in the other and we're like, oh, okay, I totally get that. Like that's exactly what I'm going through or whatever that might look like. So that's so fun. Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, before I share with people like where they can find you on the interwebs, do you have any final thoughts, things to say or share about either projectorness, success, projector playground? Like, what do your days look like? Oh my gosh, what do your days look like now? I want to know.
Oh my God, so many. Yeah. So hold on. I do want to say something really
Yeah.
important. I think so. Keep that question because I'll forget it. But
Okay.
I think that if you are wanting, if you're like interested in Projector Playground, I want you to remember that it's going to be like some of the most fun that you've ever had,
Mhm.
especially in your business. And I think that that is so important. If you are having fun, you are going to attract all of your clients. You are going to attract the invitations that you desire. You are going to just be so magnetic and so lit up. And so if you're not having fun in your business, you need to be in Projector Playground because that is like one of the biggest things that you're going to experience in terms of a shift is just finally having fun. And maybe you've been in business for so long that you're like, oh, I remember what that's like, but I haven't been able to get that back. And I think that's where I was, where it's like I started out being like, this is the best thing in the world. And I got to this point where I was so bitter and annoyed at my people, I wasn't having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that that's any way to live life. And if you just keep hopping from one job to the next or thinking you need to change the job to get that back, you're never going to be satisfied because you will change the job, you'll change what you do, and then you're going to end up in the same place just like months or years later versus being like, oh, maybe my design, the way that I'm designed is not meant to work in the way that I've learned and that I'm conditioned to working. And so what if I learn a new way to work that no matter what job I'm doing, I can walk away and have fun with that job. And I think that that is so important. And the cost of not figuring that out is higher than the cost of learning how to do it in Projector Playground with like-minded projectors where it's going to be a blast to do it. So I think that that's
Thank
like the
you.
biggest thing that I think is so important to remember is I just saved time and so much money and learning how to do this in year 4 of my business instead of year 10.
Oh,
So thank you. I appreciate it.
love you. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. And then my days, what
Yeah.
do my
Oh my
days look like? This is so funny. Because can I start with what my days used to look
Oh my
like?
God, yes, please. Because you said you were in front of a screen all the time. So so share the comparison.
Yeah. So I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and yep, I would work out. Well, I would commute in when we had places to commute. But when I was working from home, it would just be commute to the gym, which was downstairs.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would work out and then I would meditate and then I would do journaling slash thought work. And then I would start work by like 7 and I would literally have calls from like 7 until 3 or 4. And then I would figure out how to do the rest of my business, which was like podcasting, marketing, other courses, all the back end, like email work, scheduling, like all of that kind of stuff from like 4 until like 9. And then I would get done and I would have dinner and I would watch a TV show and then I would go to bed and then I would wake up and I would do it again.
Oh,
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
uh-huh.
Now, baby girl does not wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
If that's alone the win, like let's take that. Okay.
I wake up at like 7 or 8 and we have a very leisurely morning. And I normally will I actually do love sitting down and getting some work done in the morning.
Mhm.
And then we'll take Tink for a walk. We'll do some sort of like activity throughout the day, whether that's yoga or working out, but the time really fluctuates on what's happening that day.
Mhm.
I have 4 calls today and I feel like that's a lot. Normally I don't have 4 calls a day. Maybe I have 1 or 2. And then I do whatever feels fun in my business. So recently it's creating the content for the confidence cure, creating content for the More Than Move On masterclass, I've been playing with Evergreen and ads and Facebook ads and Google ads. And like, there's just so many fun things in my business that are happening right now. But I work probably like more like 6-ish hours a day. And then I of course have a lot of tank time during the week. Walking, playing, rolling around in the grass, getting face in my son, going to the beach, being on the boat. And then of course also spending a lot of time with my fiance Jake, who I love.
And you're making the same, if not more.
Yeah, I'm definitely making like I'm making double what I was making when I was working 80 or 90 hours a week. And having all those calls. My gosh, when I did one-on-one coaching and I had like 25 clients at a time and I was doing like 20 consults a week, and it was just like, what was I doing?
As a motorless projector too. Whoa,
I don't,
Nelly.
yeah, I don't even know how I did that. I like physically, I'm not sure how that happened. Lots of coffee, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. Okay, where can the humans find you and your beautiful Braveheart community on the interwebs?
Yeah. So I have a podcast called How to Get Over Your Ex. You can find it on Spotify or iTunes. It's a beautiful place to start. We've got really short, impactful, and powerful episodes that have a problem and a solution and next steps. You can also find me on Instagram at Breakup Coach Dorothy. Super fun to come hang out there. DM me there. And then my website is breakupcoachdorothy.com. And I don't know when you'll watch this, but you can find out what's happening. Sometimes I have the More to Move On masterclass happening, the 5-day training, but the way to work with me on a more personal level is through the Get Over Your Ex in 3 months or less program.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Dorothy, for your time.
Thank you.